This is Rafi Cruzon, and you are tuned in to Nothing But That Sports Talk. Welcome to another episode of Nothing But That Sports Talk. I'm Rafi Cruzon alongside Samori Benjamin. And you might have heard his voice on the Voice of Harlem radio station. He actually interviewed you, Liberty Fan TV peoples, and he covers New York sports too. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I mean, if you wonder why I'm not in that era, Jake, because you saw what happened with the New York Liberty getting smoked against the Las Vegas Aces, and we'll get your thoughts on it. I already have Santini's thoughts on it in the last episode. Now, before we get more into that, let's just talk about how you got your start in covering sports.
Yeah, well, I got my start. Really, I'm from New York, so I'm from here, and I grew up a big sports fan, and I was always, so when you're a sports fan, the only way I was able to follow my teams was through the media. So that was reading the newspapers. Newspapers in the 90s were common. They were everywhere. It was a big thing. Now it's hard to find the newspaper, but when I was growing up, I would read the Daily News, New York Post, New York Newsday, New York Times, and read all the writers, sports writers in there. And then I discovered talk radio. So I listened to that a lot. And so I feel like just being a diehard sports fan growing up in New York, where they say it's the media capital of the world and all that. And of course, the sports media in New York is serious. It's very big. There's 2 sports teams, and it's very intense. So, and there are 2 guys. Really, New York City is known for creating the format of sports talk radio. So, so myself just growing up and listening to that, I feel like I learned a lot just by listening and following my team through the media in New York. And I got my opportunity at WBAI radio station 99.5, where I still am. I still do stuff there. And I was doing an internship at first, and then I got a chance to do some stuff on the morning show, and then I got a chance to kind of show them what I could do. I gave them, like, really, the way it happened was I had this internship, and I was there to learn how to work the engineers board, because on radio, there's an engineers board. The engineer is running they're the ones that have the host on the air. So I went there to learn how to work that, because really I was trying to start a hip hop label with my boy, my best friend. And so he was a rapper, and I was kind of like the business mind behind it. So I went to the radio station, WBAI, trying to learn how to use the engineers board. So the program director at the time was doing a morning show. He was hosting a morning show, but he was also looking for like a permanent morning show host. So he would tell me, like, I was interning with him, he would tell me to come to the studio in the morning and sit behind him while he engineered the board. He would host the show and engineer the board at the same time. Like how when you see me do the radio at WACR, that's what I'm doing. I'm engineering and I'm hosting. So he was like, come sit behind me and watch how I engineer the board. And so then I was doing that. I would do that every morning on the morning show. And then one morning he started talking about sports. He was a basketball fan. There was this other guy there who they were talking sports on the show. So they went to a commercial, and I told him, hey, like, I'm a big sports fan, and I had started writing pieces. I had written pieces since I was a kid. Like, my dad encouraged me to write pieces because I had all this stuff in my head, and I would always be talking about it. He was like, okay, write it down. And I remember one time when I was in like 7th grade, I had a teacher, and she was a big Yankee fan, and we clicked and really developed a bond. But I remember there was one day we were on a class trip, and I was like talking her head off about the Yankees and whatever, and she was like, "Yo, you should write this down. Like, write about this, And so now when I had the internship WBAI, I was like, yeah, I'm a sports writer, whatever, yada yada yada. So the program director, he said, okay, well, when we come back from break, sit down in the seat and we'll talk and all that. So that's like how I first started. And then so like I said, he was trying to find a permanent morning show host. So, like WBAI is not a sports station. It's, news and all kind of stuff, right? And and so I would come in the mornings and then talk sports with him, and then he was like trying to find a host. They found a host to host the show, and so they were putting together this morning team, and so I wanted to be a part of it, and so I spoke to the new host. It was a woman. She was not even a sports fan, and she said, "Okay, well, make a demo of what you would want to do." So I did that. I sent it to her. She liked it, so I started doing morning sports reports every morning on the morning show, and like through that, I was able to get credentials to cover the teams because I was doing this, and I started sending in my work to them. It took me a while for them to start credentialing me and start taking me serious and all that, but I just stayed on it, and that's how it started.
Well, everybody has their way of starting off in the sports industry, and you kind of reminds me a little bit of how I started when I attended LIU during my days at LIU Brooklyn and Fordham, which is where I actually started my journey in journalism altogether. Like literally, I mean, I had to start off being a writer for the school newspaper, and I even got involved with the on-air radio train that what was WLIU radio before that phased out due to technical issues, and not to mention later on. I also was a program director for a TV station that they had called LIU TV, where I use the hard drive that I get sent from another company and put it into the TV networks. And I learned how to be a videographer. I learned how to do interviews. I learned how to talk on air. And let me tell you, the training is no joke. You gotta be the board operator and the on-air talent at the same time. Compared to WUV, you had to. I mean, again, I had to be the board operator and on your talent at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Was there ever a time where you struggled to perfect your craft? And or to be more specific, was there any weaknesses that you discovered at the early stages of your journalism career?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was one thing is when I was doing it, when I started doing it, and like I said, I had to show the new host that I was doing something that she felt was worth being on her show every morning. So from that standpoint, I felt like I really knew a lot and had a lot to give, and I could do a lot of really good things, and I felt like I knew what sports fans wanted to hear. But just, I mean, yeah, there were challenges. I mean, just being on the radio, just being comfortable behind a microphone, being comfortable talking live and all that. Yeah, so like that was definitely like when I first started doing it live, it was I would always it's funny because when I first started doing it live, I was like really I would like before I would get on the air, I was nervous, and I would like talk to myself, like privately and just, like try and just make sure that when I got on the air, like I said everything, correct and clearly and all that. And so, yeah, I mean, so like I remember like going through that a lot in the beginning, just being like really like wound up and, just hoping that my words and all that came out. And but now I don't even think about it. And now I'm completely confident on the air and it's nothing. And but like definitely when I first started, that was something where it was a lot of nervousness before I was on the air. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody gets nervous when they start doing on their radio.
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, even sometimes I get nervous. Depending on who. I mean, it depends on who you're interviewing, what you're talking about, and the type of product you're getting out there. And my advice to you: just continue to build off of that. Nervousness is nothing. I mean, I've interviewed somebody.
Yeah.
I mean,
now, like now, I'm not nervous at all. Like I'm saying, like when I first started doing it. So this is like 2005, 2006. Like this was like a long time ago now. 2007, 2008. So like when I first started, that's how I felt. But like now, like I said, now I don't feel anything at all. I just go on and it's all natural and easy. Like it's easy to me now. I don't even think about it. Like I said, when I first started, I would think about it. Now I can roll out of bed and just, talk 2 hours by myself, So yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you know what? That's what it's all about when you're working on perfecting your craft. And for those of you that listen to this episode, you could actually learn. You could actually learn a thing or two as far as perfecting whatever you had to begin. Like I got this one special guest earlier this year. Her name is Bianca Pierre. She does a lot of arena
Yeah,
hosting.
I've known her. I've known her for a long time.
You
Yeah,
know Bianca Pierre? You don't want
for a long time.
dark skin lady.
Hell yeah.
She works for the Brooklyn Nets for years.
I've known her before she got with the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah.
Why don't you tell me a little
for
bit of
long
the
time.
backstory about how you and her first met?
Her and I?
Yeah.
Well, because I was covering, like I said, I've been covering Knicks games since 2006. The first Knicks game I ever covered, the first Knicks event I ever covered was Knicks Media Day 2005. And then my first Knicks game I ever covered was Knicks 2006 season. So I've been covering the Knicks since then. So like at some point during that, like I started seeing her at the games at some point. And like she was doing some stuff herself. So that's how I first met her. And this was probably like maybe like 2010, 11, 12, around there, 13, around there, around that time. And then she got the gig with the Nets, yeah. And now she's doing great things.
Yeah, exactly. She was doing some skits for MSG earlier this year. And you know what? I finally first knew about Bianca when she liked the photo that I took when I covered the Nets open practice at LIU Brooklyn.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And I also meant to mention that her and I actually, we both, and then in like 2018 and 2019, both of us actually ended up at Columbia University School of Journalism. So we both got our master's degrees in the May of 2019. Yeah, we both were actually like in the same program, and just happened. Yeah.
You've been doing journalism before Columbia University, basically.
Say it again.
But you basically been doing journalism before Columbia.
Way before.
Because when I filled out an application, they say something about having 5 years of journalism experience prior to working at Columbia. So yeah, you got that locked and loaded.
Yeah, I mean, and some people were in the program that had no experience, because there's some people who were going in there for a career change, So and they got in for other reasons, but yes, I mean. Yeah, so I mean, everybody in there was very smart, but yeah, there were some people in there that had zero journalism experience. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it is when you go into grad school, the journalism field. I mean, I didn't have any journalism experience going into LIU in 2015. I graduated.
Yeah.
And I had some going into my grad program at Fordham University. I had a little bit of experience.
Yeah.
But I never worked at a radio station where I'm either the board operator or the engineer or the on-air talent in any kind of way.
Yeah.
Just doing updates before.
Yeah.
I've actually some stories for the news department when I was a day of reporter, like covering events. I get sent to cover events on the exact day and come back to do small write-ups.
Right. Let me ask you. When you were growing up, how much did you listen to sports talk radio and read the papers?
Well, I read the papers. Well, when I started getting into sports, I mostly read the daily news.
Okay.
And I mostly watch sports on television. Like I would watch the highlights, the anchors and all that. I didn't think much about being a journalist at that point. But once I was finally to take the next step and get into college, I was like, I want to do journalism. I want to do play-by-play like my breed. I want to do radio talk or somewhere around those realms. I want to do that. So I'm glad you asked that question.
Right. Okay. So now you were not a big sports talk radio person then.
Well, I listen to radio every now and then, but
okay.
I mean, I listen to radio every now and then, but I'm mostly watching sports on TV or reading the newspapers, or I would go on the internet and read about every Knicks loss. And you mentioned you started watching it, you cover the Knicks. That's pretty much around the time where I started watching the New York Knicks at 14, at 14 years old. You talk about the 05-06 year during Larry Brown's only year where the Knicks were like somewhere around those realms. But even though the Knicks were bad, they did have some good moments. And you were there for that. So you were basically covering the Knicks around the time where they had like a triple overtime victory against the Memphis Grizzlies. And then they had a triple overtime win against the Pistons. David Lee had a putback tip in against the Charlotte Bobcats. Stephon Marbury had a fast break layup at the buzzer against the Utah Jazz. Steve Francis had a buzzer beater against the Washington Wizards. So you was watching the Knicks during that time. I remember that season.
Nice, yeah, man. And
I remember that season.
Yeah, and I would love definitely, and I love talking about it. But yeah, I mean, that was the first season I started covering Knicks games. Yes, Larry Brown's one season. Yeah, that was the first season, and I started there, 2005 at the Knicks Media Day in October, and like right before, I remember going to Media Day. I was a high
school freshman around that time.
Nice, yeah, I remember going to Media Day, and there was rumors that the Knicks might make a big trade and all this, and that was a couple of days later. They made the trade for Eddie Curry, and they got Eddie Curry. Eddie Curry came over from Chicago, and at the time, like he had some heart issues with the Bulls and all that, and so it was like excitement that they got Eddie Curry. But no, but I was definitely that was a wild, strange season. I mean, that was special for me because my first time, covering the first. I'm trying to so like the first ever sporting event for one of these New York City teams or any team anywhere. My first ever thing that I covered was Knicks Media Day, and then later that year I covered some games, like second half, and that was a weird season because going into that year, the Knicks, I thought they had a lot of talent. I thought that Larry Brown had just come from the Detroit Pistons, where he did the most masterful coaching job I've ever seen in the NBA Finals. The most shocking NBA Finals result I've ever seen was when Larry Brown's Detroit Pistons, 2004, upset the Lakers, beat them in 5 games. When they had Kobe, Shaq, of course, Kobe and Shaq won 3 together, and they added Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and no one thought, now people easy to say differently after it happens, but going into that series, no one thought that the Pistons had a chance of winning that series. And the Lakers, the Pistons beat them in 5 games. I mean, totally destroyed them. That was shocking. Larry Brown. So then Larry Brown's now the coach of the Knicks, and it was just a disaster. And
Stephon, huh? Yeah, that season was just so egregious. They did have a 6-game winning streak to start 06, but then they lost.
Yeah, they did.
The end of it.
And like Stephon Marbury got hurt, they won 6 straight games, and I remember Marbury got hurt, like he hurt his shoulder or something like that, and then like he wasn't able to play a couple of games, and they just fell apart after that, But they have so much talent. I mean, that was the first season. That was the first season, the rookie year of David Lee, Nate Robinson, who I love Nate Robinson, and Channing Frye. They were all rookies that season. And Trevor Ariza started the year with the Knicks, and they traded him for Steve Francis, and I was like, oh, the Knicks get Steve Francis? And they had Steve Francis.
Yeah, I thought the Knicks were going to turn around. They picked up Steve Francis, and then they...
Yeah, they had a backcourt of Steve Francis, Stephon Marbury, Jamal Crawford, and Nate Robinson. And I thought, I was like, as a Knicks fan, I was hyped. I was like, Knicks are gonna be good. And then they had Quentin Richardson was on that team too, okay, and who also like the previous year with Phoenix, that was when Phoenix balled out, had that great 61 season out of nowhere. Quentin Richardson was hitting mad threes. He won the 3-point shootout that previous season. And with the Clippers, he was the guy that, could put it on the floor, take it to the hole, dunk on you. So they had him too. Eddie Curry, Larry Brown was calling Eddie Curry the franchise player and bigging him up. He was he was another word player with a lot of talent, but just had issues where he could never get to that level, and then he just fell apart. Because once Mike D'Antoni came in, he was done with Eddie Curry. Yeah, I mean, so and then Isaiah came in and all that. I mean, I'll tell you, like those Knicks right there, to me, like those were a very talented group of Knicks, and they just the players just underachieved under the pressure of playing for the Knicks and the pressure and all that. Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah, those were tough. And you know what? And you know what? While we talking about it, it was just so tough watching Knicks lose because it was actually a year where I was actually excited to see the York Knicks, even when I knew they weren't going to go nowhere as constructed right then. When you had to deal with when they had to deal with LeBron James's Cavaliers, who went to the finals in 07, and then a year before that, Dwayne Wade carried Miami to the finals and then shot to another ring. And they were even getting beat up. Even the worst teams beat the New York Knicks. It was just so bad. But
Yeah. Yes.
but
Yes.
look at
And yes. Yes.
but
And that happened. That happened for years and years and years. Even after the Isaiah years, they lost a lot of horrible teams would come in the Garden and beat the Knicks. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. People who came into Knick fandom the time that you did, and there's of course a lot of you, and it's just interesting how you all became Knick fans because like those Knicks teams weren't that good, and so it's interesting how you all got compelled and into the team because when I was growing up, so like I became a Knick fan. My first year of being a diehard Knicks fan was 1991-92 Knicks season. That was the first season that Pat Riley was the head coach. And that season, and the Knicks had been, they were a team who had made, before Pat Riley, they would make the playoffs, but they were never a serious contender. Like 8 teams make the playoffs every year in each conference. So they would make it, but they would always get smacked around with never any kind of real threat or anything. No one took them seriously. But then Pat Riley came, and that first season, they beat the Detroit Pistons and Isaiah Thomas, the bad boys on their way out. And Knicks, that was one of the best of 5 series was when the first round was best of 5 series. And the Knicks, that series went 5 games. Knicks beat them in 5 games. Game 5 was at the Garden. So I remember watching that. Every game, I would go over to my neighbor's apartment, right? Because we didn't have cable. The games were all on cable. And so I remember going over there for each game, watching it. Then next round, second round, they played the Chicago Bulls, right? The Chicago Bulls had won a championship, their first championship with Jordan, all right? First championship in franchise history. They've only won 6, all with Jordan. So the first one, they had just won the previous year. So they were the defending champions. And the Knicks, they had played the Knicks in the playoffs about 2 or 3 times, and previously with Ewing on the roster, I think twice before. In the previous season, they got swept by the Bulls and all that. So then they're playing them in the second round, and nobody thinks the Knicks have a chance at all. And game 1 is in Chicago. The Knicks win game 1, right? They win game 1. Yo, that shocked everybody, right? Shocked everybody. And it was on from there. Next 2 games, all right, game 2 and game 3, Chicago wins, okay? People are like, oh, okay, Chicago got this. Game 4 at the Garden. Knicks win game 4, 2-2. Bulls go to Chicago, win game 5. Game 6, all right? Game 6, Knicks down 3-2 at the Garden. Knicks win game 6. Then they go to 7 games. Like, I get goosebumps just talking about it. Like, that was, so. And I would go to my neighbor's apartment every night to watch those Knicks playoff games. Pat Riley's first year. So after that, I was hooked. I was hooked on the Knicks. Next year, they went to the conference finals against the Bulls.
that was the year they blew. That was the year they blew a 2-0 lead against the Chicago.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Really after John Starks dunked on Jordan. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. Even after judging from the documentary I watched where they did about Michael Jordan, the Knicks were not stopping the Bulls.
I'm sorry. Say it again. The last thing you said.
I said, yeah. Let's be honest. The Knicks were not stopping the Bulls. If you watching it, if you knew about the New York Knicks before those years when you started watching it, you knew the Bulls were going to lose. Jordan was hungry. He didn't win nothing in the 80s.
Yeah, you know what? The thing is that at the time, Knicks fans in New York, we really thought that we had a great chance. Like you said, Knicks went up 2-0. Any team that goes up 2-0 in a series, even if the first 2 games were in their building, and the other team still has game 3 and 4 in their building. Anybody that goes up 2-0 is feeling good, okay? The other team has to now beat you 4 out of 5 games to win the series, and you've already beat them 2 straight games. So now they have to now beat you 4 out of the next 5. And the Knicks that season, they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. They had the home court advantage in that series. That was the last time the Knicks won 60 games in a regular season, ever. Last time they won 60 games. That was, 30 years ago now, all right? 1993. They had won going into game 5 of that Eastern Conference Finals game against the Bulls. The Knicks had won 27 straight games at Madison Square Garden. They had a record of 37-4 that year at Madison Square Garden. So going into game 5, they had won 27 straight. That was the game where Charles Smith was under the basket at the end of the game, and he's, going up, Knicks are down by 1, 2, whatever it was, and Charles Smith is under the basket. 6'10" Charles Smith, who the Knicks traded for before that season. He was with the Clippers before that. He averaged like 20 points a game, was, borderline all-star. Knicks trade for him, and we think we're getting this guy that's going to come and be a 20-point scorer to help Ewing and all that. He comes and does not do that. He was a good guy, but he was a disappointment, all right? And so that game 5 ends with him under the basket, going up, trying to, to be fair, there were like, 3, 4 Chicago Bulls under the basket with their hands up, trying to block him. He's trying to go up and, he probably got fouled. I don't know, but just the fact he's 6'10", so the fact that he's under the basket and he can't get the basket, everybody was upset. I remember going to my room right after that, ran into my room, had all these basketball cards, took my Charles Smith basketball card and tore it up, tore it up. Knicks now down 3-2 in the series, going to Chicago for game 6, and you already know that's going to happen. Everybody already knew, okay, we blew our chance. Had won 27 straight home games, and right, and that was the last time they won 60 games in a season.
Wow.
Right.
We're down upset about the Knicks losing that time.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's
the
same emotion I had when the Knicks lost their second round to the Pacers in 2013. And they weren't good.
Right. So now, and like I said, my point for bringing that up is it was easy for me to get hooked on the Knicks because that was like riveting stuff. The next year, Jordan retired and they went to the finals then, you know what I'm saying? And like it still took them 7 games to beat the Bulls without Jordan, and that's the thing that everybody wants to talk about Jordan and all that, I personally think, and I don't want to, turn the conversation left, but I think LeBron is better than Jordan. And
thank you. That's the same thing I said. That's the same.
Okay, right? Yeah.
Pollard, who called LeBron James a spotless coward for leaving the Cleveland Cavaliers the first time for Miami. And I told him, calm that down. Look what happened later after he did that. LeBron was in NBA Finals. I was
Right. Yeah. And like a big part of the reason, part of what I say, is that we know that every team LeBron leaves the next season they're terrible. I mean, that Cleveland team you mentioned when he left, all right. I mentioned the Knicks had a 27-game win streak at home in '93. That Cavalier team that LeBron left, they lost, I believe, 27 straight games at one point that next year. So like
in 2011, they were egregious for 2 months.
Yeah. So every team after that, he left. We're not good the next year, not in the playoffs. The Bulls in '93, '94, the next year when the Knicks lost to them in the conference finals, the next year, Jordan retired. He was not there. The Bulls without Jordan still won 54 games. They won a playoff series, and they took the Knicks to 7 games in the second round without Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like, no LeBron team when he leaves is doing that. So, like, Jordan had Pippen. LeBron, and, I don't want to turn this into a LeBron Jordan thing, but I just want to bring up this point. Because you mentioned somebody called in and talked about how LeBron was a spineless coward for leaving Cleveland after the first 7 years. Look, not only did LeBron not have a Scottie Pippen or any all-star next to him those first 7 years. Had he had that the way Jordan had Pippen, LeBron never would have left Cleveland in the first place. But he couldn't win a championship by himself with a bunch of mediocre players, which is what it was with Cleveland. Okay. And also, I want to point this out, because I'm talking about Jordan and all that, beating the Knicks. I saw all that. Jordan was so great when he was done. Like when he was playing, I was like, I said to myself, I'll never see a player better than him because he's so clutch. I'll never see a player better than him. But then LeBron came along, and I saw him, and my thought changed. I'm gonna tell everybody, LeBron's first 7 years in Cleveland, when he had absolutely nothing next to him, and 4 years removed from high school, carried a team full of a bunch of role players to the NBA Finals. All right, 4 years removed from high school. That in LeBron's first 7 years in Cleveland is more impressive than anything I ever saw Michael Jordan do.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, and I started this debate because I asked Patrick, like, what do you always thought about LeBron James as a player? And then he said, I like him at first, but when he left Cleveland to go to Miami, that was a messed up move. He was a spineless coward for that. I mean, and we're going to transition into talking about LeBron Jordan debate.
Yeah. But just back to my point, like I give you younger Knicks fans credit because like it was harder for you all to really become hardcore Knicks fans because there was not a lot of winning going on. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always really impressed and fascinated how Knicks fans of your age like really became diehards because I just told you how I became a diehard. It was like riveting basketball, every year, every spring in the playoffs and all that, like contending for a championship. They were a championship contender for 10 years. They never won one. There was a lot of heartbreak, but then like you saw what happened after that, the next 23 years where we're at now, so now people like me look at the 90s at the glory days and they never even won a championship, I mean, that's how bad it got. And that's what you grew up on,
Exactly. The Knicks were so tough to watch. The New York Liberty in the 2000s were more fun to watch at the Garden than the Knicks.
Yeah, man. And like I said, the Knicks had, like, to me, they had a lot of talent most of the time post the Patrick Ewing, Sprewell days. Like, okay, since, a lot of the time, like the last 20 years, they've had a lot of talent on the team, but like a lot of the time they just underachieved to me, like and cracked under the pressure. I feel like playing for the Knicks is very difficult for these guys, and it's tougher to win playing for the Knicks at Madison Square Garden, where it's the biggest stage in the league and you got all the pressure and all that. Like I've seen it just affect these players mentally in the wrong way, and they just like fall apart and lose. Man. It's crazy, man.
Yeah, you know what? You gotta come out to the show so you can try to talk some sense to this guy named Patrick Pollard to remind him why LeBron James is better than Jordan. You gotta come back because me and Ryan talked some sense to this guy and it did not work.
Sure.
But
Sure.
But yeah, we're gonna get to talk about LeBron Jordan debate later. But yeah, you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you went to Columbia and you met Bianca Pearl. Like, why don't you talk to me about like how she was like as a student when you were going to college together?
Yeah. Well, okay. Let me see. All right. So I'm not even sure. Thinking back over it, I don't think we actually had a class together, even though we were in the same program. But it was, it was probably, I'm trying to remember again how many kids were in the program. I mean, it was like a couple hundred, or I forget. But so we all had different classes, different professors. So like we actually never ended up in a class, though we were in the same program, doing like the same curriculum, and we knew each other. So when we saw that we both were there, it was like, oh hey, we would talk about it, and and after graduation, we hung out, and so that was a very cool thing because, like I said, we had known each other for a few years before that, just covering games, and so like we looked up, and we both were in the program, So we actually did not end up in a class together though.
Wow. I mean,
yeah,
that tends to happen. I mean, I guess it's depending on what times you pick classes. When you pick your class, it's just a luck. It was just the luck of the draw, or in your case, the unluck of the draw. Yeah, I guess that's how it is. Now,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Now to continue the further conversation, I saw that you went to before you went to Columbia. I saw you went to Norfolk State University. What
Yeah.
about that whole experience means like attending that school and how it helped you become the main journalist you are today.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, just being from New York and there's no HBCUs. Norfolk State is a historically Black university, and there is not one in New York City or really in the North, right? And so, but I was a kid. There was a Black college football game that took place every year in September, and it was always a Black school. It was Grambling University, and Grambling at that time had Eddie Robinson. He is the most winningest head coach in HBCU history. He's also one of he was the winningest head coach in college football history, period, up until I think Joe Paterno surpassed him, but I'm not sure. He got into that scandal there, so I'm not sure. They might have taken some games away from Patino. Some wins. I'm not sure, but Eddie Robinson's either number one or number two, maybe number three now. I'm not sure, but he was for a long time the winningest head coach in college football history. Period. And he sent a lot of very talented players to the NFL from Grambling when there were not a lot of Afro American players who were allowed to play for the big, predominantly white institutions in the major football conferences. Even though, as I've been talking about a lot over the last month, it's sad because the best Black players should be playing at HBCUs, and HBCUs are schools who should be the best football and basketball powers in the country, period. I mean, all these top Black athletes do is they run to these predominantly white institutions and make them a fortune while they could be doing it, for HBCUs and, having the players you see now at HBCUs who are like the scraps of the Black talent, have them playing at PWIs. But anyway, I would go to the football game. Grambling would play somebody, Grambling or Hampton, Grambling or Howard, Grambling or Morgan State, and they would have a battle of the bands. Like the bands is what really the culture that would be at these games, the Black college culture and the bands and all that. That really made me want to go to an HBCU. And yeah, when you go to an HBCU football game, the thing is the thing that everybody understands is the real game is the halftime show when the bands get out there and do their thing. That's very entertaining. They're very good. They get down in the games. For me as a big sports fan, the college football, the HBCU football games, it's you gotta be a diehard, all right, of the school to really sit down and watch HBCU football game. That's how I feel. And that's and like I said, it's because the best talent in our community, they diss HBCUs. They run to these PWIs. So it's the players who are playing for HBCUs are when you're a sports fan, you want to see sports played at the highest level. So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, HBC. I mean, we can't sleep on HBCUs. I mean, I constantly work with this guy. He went to Cheney University, which is an HBCU school located in Pennsylvania. Not the first, but the oldest HBCU school in the nation, as I was told a couple times.
So, okay, yeah. I mean, no, I mean, and like I said, the HBCUs, they should have the best basketball and football teams in the country, because you look at the top football and basketball teams, what do you see? Most of the players are Black. The best players are mostly Black, all right? And so why aren't they going to HBCUs? I mean, they should be, but they don't.
So then you have those schools. Well, it's not their fault. I mean, when you get recruited to go to the top colleges, of course they're gonna go there.
Right. I mean, right. Yeah. I mean,
it was
yeah.
And you got.
I mean, I get it. I get that part. I get it. These kids are trying to get to the pros, so that's all they care about is going to the pros. But when you have somebody like Deion Sanders, Black Americans getting all excited, Black sports fans getting all excited. And my thing is, Deion could have stayed at Jackson State and did what he's doing at Jackson State. I mean, did what he's doing at Colorado right now at Jackson State, because all those players who he got at Colorado, they all would have gone with him to Jackson State. Travis Hunter, #1 recruit in the country, went to Jackson State, to HBCU. So like, and now everybody is celebrating Colorado. And to me, it's like, y'all rooting for the University of Colorado. You look at their student body population, the percentage of Black students, student body at Colorado is less than 3%. And you got all these Black sports fans, like raving for Deion, and like to me, about
Deion's a big name. I mean, Deion Sanders is a big name figure in football.
Right, and he should have stayed at Jackson State, and he should have changed the game. He was about to change the game, all right? Because, like I said, like you said, like these kids, they go to these big PWIs, but Deion's getting them to come to the HBCUs, and they could have beat all these schools. You know what I'm saying? But he had his vision was short-sighted, and I feel like most of the Black sports fans' vision is short-sighted. Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, forget Colorado. That's what I feel. But like, you know, I'm mixed on it. I'm very mixed on it. But you know, but the majority of my South feels that way.
Yeah, I mean, everybody has their opinion about the students that actually attend those type of school, attend those HBCU schools, and I can't sleep on HBCUs. It's just the fact that there's no HBCUs in New York. That's why I never entertained the idea of going to an HBCU.
Of course. I mean, and like I said again, I'm not getting on anyone for not going to one. What I'm saying is that when it comes to college football and college basketball, like sports that everybody's talking about, it's a big business. It's $1 billion business. That's what it is. It's $1 billion business. So from that aspect, when you have someone like Deion Sanders, who was capable and in position and preaching about how he's going to change the game, and you don't have to go to these PWIs, come home, HBCUs. That's what he was preaching. And then he's actually getting kids to actually buy that message and come to HBCUs. Then why leave? You know what I'm saying? So I'm talking about him, like, because he could have changed the whole game, the whole landscape, hierarchy of college, major college sports. Like he could have. Like, you see all your Black celebrities, these hip hoppers, like, yo, if all of them had that same energy when he was at Jackson State, and he got them, he was like, yo, all you all, like, support this, put the word out. Best Black athletes, come with me, come to HBCUs. You don't have to go to, like, when you see Cameron and, CeCe Sabathia and Terrell Owens, I mean,
Stephen A. Smith, he was an athlete at HBCU, but before he got into
the rappers, Offset and them, Migos, like, they all at the Colorado. You know what I'm saying? If they all had that same energy and push for Jackson State and that same message, yo, come to HBCU, it would have been a wrap. Like, it would have changed the whole mentality of all the Black kids, their parents. You would have seen the best Black athletes going to HBCUs. So, like, to me, that's my disappointment in the whole Deion Sanders thing.
And the crazy thing is, it wasn't too long ago I actually covered an HBCU event that they were doing at Rooker Park, like the Harlem Renaissance class.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that, and I did not even know about that.
Some interesting African American athletes to play HBCU. And some of the singing and marching bands taking place in a street ball landscape.
Right.
We need more of that in the tri-state area. And
that was beautiful.
Of course, the Harlem Renaissance Classic, and of course, to get out the Harlem Renaissance Classic, don't forget to check it out. They're going to be at the Gatos Gym. And Rachel and Daryl did a very good job of organizing that event to bring HBCUs in the New York area. We need more people like that.
Wait, so you said there's another event coming up soon at Gauchos?
Yes, Harlem Renaissance Classic at the Gauchos Gym next month, November 25th. Don't forget to check it out.
So who's going to be there?
For what I do, I believe it's, well, you're going to have to go on social media.
Okay, all right. You know what? If you could, like, remind me about that, because I haven't heard of it, but it sounds interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right. You're going to love it. Yeah.
Yeah, because the Rucker event, I had no idea, but I saw on somebody's social media, and they were at Rucker Park and HBCU event. I had no idea that it was even a thing. So yeah, I'm going to check that out.
Well, yeah, you gotta check it out at some point. That's the best you could do. But yeah, get back to the now we can transition to another topic. Yeah, let's just talk about the LeBron James Michael Jordan debate. You mentioned earlier in the show that LeBron James is better than Michael Jordan. Like, what in your mind makes LeBron James better than Jordan? Other than Jordan?
I feel like LeBron James has done more with less than any player I've ever seen. Like I said, you take Jordan away from the Bulls in 93, 94, they still won 54 games without him. They won a playoff series without him. They took the Knicks, who went to the finals that year, to 7 games without him, all right? And Scottie Pippen was an MVP candidate that year. And you look at all the teams LeBron leaves the next year, they're not in the playoffs. They're not even good, like we said. The first time LeBron left Cleveland, like I said, the first 7 years LeBron was in Cleveland. Like I said, the first 7 years LeBron was in Cleveland. He didn't even win a championship, but he was playing there with nobody. And like the way he carried that team, and 4 years removed from high school, had them in the finals. All right, in the finals with nobody. To me, all that was more impressive than anything I saw Michael Jordan do. Because, like I said, it's a team game, and he's done the most with less. I mean, he leaves Cleveland. He leaves Miami. He even leaves Miami. After the first year, he leaves Miami. Wade and Bosh and them don't make the playoffs. Okay, they don't make the playoffs. And what does LeBron do? He goes to Cleveland, back to Cleveland, where 4 years without him, they were not in the playoffs. All right, they were bad. 3 of those years were with Kyrie Irving on the team. Okay, no playoffs. Okay, LeBron comes there first season, they're in the finals, and all 4 years in Cleveland, they're in the finals. Yo, I'm gonna tell you like this. All right, LeBron, his first 7 years in Cleveland, he didn't have not one All-Star the whole time, okay? And the Boston Celtics got Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen together, had a legit Hall of Fame big three. And that is why after LeBron carried the Cavaliers to the finals in 07, that next season, Boston had the big three. So, okay, now LeBron not going to be able to beat 3 Hall of Famers plus Rondo by himself, you know what I'm saying? And so that happened. Give Dwight Howard a lot of respect in 09 because they beat the Cavaliers in the conference finals. And Dwight, give him a lot of respect. Like, to me, he is someone who should have been on the top 100 list. And when he was in his prime at that time, he's like, all right, one of the few guys you could say beat LeBron head up, In 09, he did in the conference finals. I'll give him that, But anyway, you give LeBron, all right, his first 7 years, he didn't have one All-Star. You give him at least one All-Star, okay? He was in the finals the next 8 years straight, okay? All right? From the time he got at least one All-Star, okay, with Miami, okay? He was in the finals every year, okay? He went from having no help to, okay, give him Bosh and Wade, and who I'm gonna tell everybody right now. When they first got together, everybody thought, and a lot of times, so many times when we see, big talent get together, people automatically think, okay, it's going to be over for everybody. This team is winning the championship every year. But then it actually has to play out. When it plays out, it's not as, as wonderful as what everybody thought. Because I'm telling you, by the time LeBron was his last year in Miami, by that time, he was carrying all of them, including Wade, including Dwayne Wade, who was like hurt every other game. You didn't know what you want to get from Dwayne Wade. Like, LeBron had to be Superman every game. If LeBron was not great every game, like that team was not winning, okay? Like Dwayne Wade was good sometimes he wasn't. Chris Bosh, same thing, okay? If LeBron was not Superman every game, his team could not win, all right? So, and then when he left, like I said, the next year, LeBron, Wade and Bosh and them, they weren't in the playoffs. And 8 teams make the playoffs. They could not finish top 8 without him, all right? Like I said, then go to Cleveland, all right? Kyrie, 3 years with no LeBron, no playoffs. All right, he goes there. They got the first pick that year. They flipped it after Kevin Love. It's just Kevin Love who put up numbers in Minnesota, but we saw what he was when he got with Cleveland. He wasn't a nice player. He wasn't no big time dominant player. All right, Kyrie was the man. Kyrie, like to me, Kyrie was better than Wade in terms of when LeBron was with him. When LeBron was with him, like Wade is the better player overall, but when LeBron was with him, Kyrie was the better player, the better number 2 than Wade was. I feel like Wade started breaking down. Kyrie was the man, young, all right, doing his thing, and then but 8 straight years in the finals. Just give LeBron one All-Star, and then even when he went to LA, right, that first year he was there, he went there and he had nobody there, a bunch of young players, no All-Star. They bring in Anthony Davis, give him at least one All-Star. He's in the finals. He was again. So
exactly, and it took injury bug. It took the injury bug for LeBron to get to lose in the first
yeah.
round and not make the
Also,
playoffs.
I'm sorry. Also, one other thing I want to point out: Michael Jordan never won one playoff series, one without Scottie Pippen. Okay, not one without Scottie Pippen. LeBron played his first 7 years of his career with nobody, and got to a finals once. Had the team winning 60 games, winning multiple series once. First 7 years with nobody. Even his last year in Cleveland, the second time around in 2018, when Kyrie left. All right, before that year, LeBron was again by himself, still carried him to the finals. So
Exactly.
yeah. Exactly. So
forget that, and that's and in 2018 was around the year I started this platform, and I always say it's LeBron James.
So, right. And so I said, it's like basically, what I should have said is without Jordan never won one playoff series without an All-Star. All right. And that All-Star was Scottie Pippen. Okay. and LeBron won plenty with nobody. So yeah.
Exactly. And let's we transition to a quick. Obviously, you got a chance to interview some media professionals that cover the New York Liberty, and you see they're in the finals. I mean, obviously they're down 2-0 to the Las Vegas Aces. Like if the season ended after Game 3, like, do you expect this New York Liberty team to stay around for at least one more season and continue to be relevant?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, before this year, they really had not been that good in a while. With last year, were they in the playoff last year?
They were. They lost to the Chicago Sky in the first round.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I mean, they made their first round last year, but they weren't really all that good. They weren't a series contender. And then before that, they had a lot of lean years, and their first time in the finals since 2002. It's really hard to believe that the New York WNBA could have a New York franchise and not make the finals in that many years. But this is just the first year that they're together. I mean, when you look at this, right, in the first Liberty game I went to this year, and the first game I went to in 7 years was on August 28th when the Liberty played the Aces.
And they smoked. And they smoked the Aces. I watched that game.
Yeah, right. And so I was excited. But I'll tell you, the last two games, Aces team that I'm seeing ain't the team I saw August 28th, because right now,
because they're playing in Vegas and not the Barclays Center. The home court, they got home court in the back. I mean, Aces will lose.
You know what?
But
you know what? I'm going to tell you. From what I've seen the first two games, honestly, I think it's going to be a sweep. And I hope I'm wrong. I think it's going to be a sweep. And a lot has to change for the Liberty to win the next game. And the Aces right now, they look like they have, they've not lost a playoff game yet. All right. They could be the first team ever to go 8-0 in the playoffs. They are the defending champions, so we know that they are the champions, and they look like they just gone to another level. They look like they mean business. All right. Asia Wilson lost out on the MVP to Breonna Stewart, and Asia Wilson said that she was disappointed that she did not win, and she's coming out in these first two games, all right, with looking like someone with something to prove, all right, who's mad. And the whole Aces team looked like they're a team that was something to prove, okay? All of them look like they have something to prove. Looks like, like we fooled you. In the regular season, we were just coasting. Right now, we're serious, and they look faster. They look more athletic, all right? They look stronger. And the backcourt, I mean, Sabrina Ionescu does not look like she's ready for prime time to me, all right? She's very young, but, I mean, in the first playoff game, she went off, hit all these threes. Then the guard on the Mystics was saying that she was going to guard her the next game and lock her up. She did. Like, since then, Sabrina has not played that well, I don't think. Yeah, and so I'm watching her now. She looks timid. She looks like she's not being aggressive.
She combined for 17 points in the first two games of the finals. But it is her first finals appearance ever, so
right. So I'm just saying, right. So I'm just saying, it looks to me like this is the kind of thing where, okay, they put together this star team. First year, everything was going really well, but now they're playing the defending champions who are battle tested. They know how to play together, and they have something to prove. And they look like to me like they are outclassing the Liberty. And if the Liberty make it back to Las Vegas, at this point I'll be stunned. I'll be stunned. And like I said, I think it's going to be a sweep because when I look at the backcourt play, like they just look way. I mean, Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young are running laps around Sabrina and Vandersloot. I mean, and it starts right there at the guard play. Aja Wilson is not messing around, all right? She's bringing it to Breanna Stewart, all right? You got the other former Liberty, Kia Stokes out there, okay? And I mean, Kelsey Plum, all right? They can't do anything with her, all right? So, yeah. It's not looking good at all.
Yeah, it's really not looking good. And I said this on the last episode so it's really not looking good at all. Not looking good.
Yeah. I mean, so like I said, a lot has to change on Sunday. But the Aces, they want to go for history on Sunday, being the first 8-0 team. They would love to sweep the Liberty after all the talk this year. Or Liberty and Aces, and Liberty beat them. Three out of 5 times in the regular season. Beat them in that cheesy Commissioner's Cup. Okay, celebrated that, which means nothing when we're talking about the finals. Okay, so the Aces are like, y'all can have that. Okay, this is what matters: the WNBA finals, and we're going to embarrass y'all, and that's what has taken place so far. So, if the Liberty don't come out early, all right, and make it a game, it's going to be ugly in Brooklyn. All right, okay. So
it's going to be ugly in Brooklyn indeed.
I mean, I want to see a big game from Breanna Stewart. Okay, she won the MVP. All the talk, like, yo, you got to bring it on Sunday. Like, even if y'all lose, like, score 30-something, 40 with efficiency. Okay, like, you got to be great.
Yeah, you got to be great indeed. Well, that wraps up this episode. Nothing but that sports talk. Thank you for stopping by, Samori.
My man, thank you, and definitely, if you can, send me a note about that HBCU at the Gauchos. And hey, man, nice talking to you, and definitely look forward to talking with you and building and bonding and all that, man. So, thank you and good luck.
Problem. And for Samori Benjamin, Rafiq Luzon, we'll see you next time.
All right, y'all. Take care.